All right, and we're back with the show. And yes, it is Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here. I did say on our previous episode of the Pop Culture Cosmos that I was going to try and bring someone in here with a different perspective when it comes to All Elite Wrestling. They just had their major event this past weekend here in the Las Vegas area. It was Double or Nothing. Personally, I can tell you from what I was able to experience and what I saw, it was a very solid event. Great wrestling all around, a very good start for the promotion in and of itself. It looks like there's some possible good things up ahead. And here to talk with me today about All Elite Wrestling, their possible future, all the things coming up, some of the talent we'll talk about as well. And overall, is this something that could eventually be on par with what back in the 90s at the Attitude Era with World Championship Wrestling battling it off against World Wrestling Entertainment? And here with me today to talk about it is just an awesome guy all around. He is the host of the Raygacy Show. You got to catch his inspirational show each and every time out as every episode drops. It's now available. It's the Raygacy Show on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, and over 10 different podcast outlets. It is a good man indeed. Rayson Choo, thank you so much for being back on the program.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me here again, and you're most welcome. It's a real pleasure to be back here to actually share my thoughts on AEW, because the other time we were talking about Avengers. This time around, it's more about pro wrestling.
I know I brought you in initially to, in regards to the fallout of Avengers Endgame and emotional health and all that and well-being. So we won't even go into Game of Thrones and the emotional health of many and how to deal with that. We're gonna give you a break from that. We're gonna give you a break from that today. We're just gonna talk about something I know you had brought up, which I was just so pleased to hear about, and that is your love of professional wrestling, sports entertainment, whatever you want to call it, wrestling, whatever you want to call it. But it is All Elite Wrestling. They are emerging onto the scene. They just had their official first outing with Double or Nothing right here in the Las Vegas area. Your thoughts initially on Double or Nothing as far as an event itself, and then later on we'll go into All Elite Wrestling and its hopes for the future and all that, and what's stacked up for it and also against it as well.
Sure. In my opinion, I actually believe Double or Nothing was pretty good. I would say that the match card was pretty impressive, especially they got to get a lot of Japanese wrestlers from all around Japan to come over to fight, and also at the same time getting the AAA tag team championship on the line as well between the Lucha Brothers and the Young Bucks. That was pretty impressive as well. And the other match that left a huge impact was actually Kenny Omega versus Chris Jericho, Alpha versus Omega #2. It was pretty amazing, but the ending was even better. The ending was even better when John Moxley, Dean Ambrose came in to actually do some dirty deeds on Y2J and Omega itself. Yeah, it's amazing. We can't wait for the whole match to come out between Omega and John Moxley, or perhaps even a triple threat match. It will be even better. The three of them. Yeah, it will be even better. It will be even nicer to watch. Yeah, and let's start with the Casino Battle Royale, right? The match between this 20-ish people that was in the Battle Royale, it was, in my opinion, the starting, it was a bit dull, especially you get to see different wrestlers coming in to kick ass, and even they got Mr. S, Billy Gunn to be part of it. They got people like Tommy Dreamer to be part of it. It was okay, but when Orange Cassidy came in, it was it was a bit dull, like watching him do the sloth movement, all the kicks, all the all the um, all his weird antics in wrestling. It's in my opinion, it's quite dull. But the as it goes along, as the match goes along, when Hangman Page comes in, it was a much better flow for the whole match. That's where Hangman Page had all the amazing, uh, I would say, amazing stuff that was on the ring, and he. At first, I knew somehow or other he will win because of how the match was staged. So when I saw him winning it, I was like, okay, cool. This was something that I think it was meant for Hangman, because when I saw the other wrestlers on the whole show, on the whole match, I don't think they would have won it somehow
And
or other. If even Ty Dillinger, who came in, I don't think he would have won it as well. Even though he had a huge ovation for him, but I don't think he would have won that match. Somehow or other, when Hangman Page came in, I realized that, hey, this guy could be the winner somehow or other. So it's easy to predict, even though the storyline is pretty interesting, but somehow or other we know that it's easy to predict who's the winner for that match.
well, I agree with you on that because simply said, the first thing you want to address with AEW and All Elite Wrestling is the fact that since they don't have the background, the years already in production that
Yep.
the WWE
Mm-hmm.
has, and obviously the resources
Yeah.
as well, they're not able to get that caliber of wrestler all the time. And it really hurts you in the mid to lower card range. And one of those
Mm-hmm.
was the 21 person casino battle royale, where you actually
Yes.
saw the depth being very minimal. You had some old
Yep.
stars that were way past their prime, mixed in with independent wrestlers who probably the WWE
Mm-hmm.
will never look at for one reason
Yep.
or other. And you see that yes, some of them did have a following because of the small areas and the small promotions that they've been a part of. They have
Yep.
their own
That.
niches, but
Yes.
unfortunately, as an overall star aura look, there were very few options that you could really go to in that type of match. Luchasaurus,
Luchasaurus.
Brian
Yes.
Pillman Jr., Luchasaurus, who was signed to AEW after the event, Hangman Page, Ty Dillinger, aka Sean Spears, just by
Sean Spears. Yep.
name value only,
Correct.
and that's pretty much it. So, seeing how
Yeah.
that is the
And
case, that is the first thing I want to ask: is
yep.
AEW in this world of wrestling we have now? We do not have the
Mm-hmm.
system in place that we did a long time ago in, let's say, the late
Yep.
80s, early 90s, where you had so many regional outlets worldwide
Mm-hmm.
that had
Mm-hmm.
a base of wrestlers that were of quality, were experienced, and had something that they could go ahead and bring to the table all around
Yep.
that weren't necessarily in WWE or WWF at that
Mm-hmm.
time. Flash
Mm-hmm.
forward years later to 2019, you don't have that base, and I've spoken to you off camera about this. You don't have that
Yes.
base of ready wrestlers that you once did. WWE realizes that and goes out of its way to try and sign every wrestler that they can to either their
Yep.
NXT or WWE, what have you. This is what you have left over in a lot of cases. And unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
right now, while it's pretty good at the top when you have names like John Moxley, aka Dean Ambrose, you have Chris Jericho, you have Kenny Omega, you have the Young Bucks,
Yes.
you have Cody Rhodes, names like
Cody
that.
Rhodes. Yep.
It starts to fall right after that. So I ask you, my friend, the first thing you want to address when you're All Elite Wrestling is the talent base, because you can say you have 50 wrestlers, but if you don't have 50 wrestlers that can draw you a large crowd or a large audience upcoming in the future because they do have a deal with TNT, that's going to really
Yep.
hurt them, at least in the short term as well.
Yeah, I understand. And the thing is this, surprisingly, even though this is their flagship PPV pay-per-view, right? They got it full house somehow or rather. They got a lot of attention,
Well,
and
they've got a
that's
lot of
how they.
goodwill
Yeah,
leading from that all
yeah,
in. And this also emanates from the fact that there was the Bullet Club. This all emanates from the
yeah.
Bullet Club in New Japan,
Correct.
how they gathered
Yes, yes,
together.
yes.
Yes, it became very cool. Got to buy
Mm-hmm.
the T-shirts at Hot Topic,
Yep.
and also someone who follows us as well, the great people at Pro Wrestling Tees. I mean, those kind of
Yes.
entities. That's how it really got to where it was with the All In
Correct.
independent event last year that did so well, and they're a hot name right now, so they are banking on it. The Jacksonville
Mm-hmm.
Jaguars owner, Tony,
Yep.
Jacksonville Jaguars owner, Mr. Khan, his son Tony is running it. And
Yes.
I've heard this story before. You'll forgive me
Mm-hmm.
when it comes
Yep.
to a sibling or a son or a daughter. In this case, it's a
Mm-hmm.
son that's given a lot of money and a lot of rain to go ahead and try and start a promotion up like this, because we saw
Yep.
it when with Dixie Carter and TNA, and when
Mm-hmm.
they tried to go in full board with Hulk Hogan. I'm
Yep.
first of all, I want AEW to succeed. But I've seen
Definitely.
this story before many times over, where there's money put in short term and money put in that's once the returns are not there short term, the patience seems to leave very quickly. So I ask you,
Yep.
Rayson, your thoughts on what AEW has to do initially before they go on the air here coming up this fall, week by week by week, to have something that could even challenge or approach what the WWE has to offer.
Well, what they have to do is that they do not have to be the next WCW again, because from what I saw is that they have a lot of teams that were similar to WCW in terms of the way they challenge WWE, in terms of how they actually draw talent from WWE, like back in the days when the first few guys that came from WWE to WCW, such as people like Lex Luger, Bret Hart, Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan, Razor Ramon, Diesel. All these people went in to WCW, and they claim that it's where the big boys play, right? So now AEW is something like what WCW is doing, and you look at the entrance where AEW guys come in and out from the entrance in terms of the tunnel. It looks similar and very old school like WCW, and even their ring is similar to WCW, where they have their logo in the center, and the way they make the ring, it looks like WCW in my opinion. And also at the same time, they the way they actually draw talent is similar to WCW way of drawing talent, where they got people on board, like how uh, Bret Hart was complaining, was actually saying uh, about WCW in WWF when the Montreal Screwjob happened. So for John Moxley, even though he didn't do the AEW sign on WWE Raw or SmackDown or any PPV, but somehow or other, when he jumped over to AEW and the way he taunted WWE, and the post-match conference where Cody, Dustin were all talking about this WWE, Vince McMahon, how they should watch AEW. It felt like, it's like how WCW is doing again, was doing back in the days. And also at the same time, the way where Cody Rhodes went to take the sledgehammer and whack the uh, the throne,
Yeah.
which Triple H was proclaimed to be sitting on every time when his entrance was on in WrestleMania, for example. There are a couple of times that he actually sat on that and they broke it. So it seems like they are having I would say, huge challenge for WWE. But then again, recent news, especially recent Raw, Sami Zayn actually said out AEW on either on purpose or accidentally. So there's a huge thing that a lot of people were I would say commenting about, were speculating in terms of that. And I would say that AEW is actually, they're on the rise, yes, but it seems like they are going to be a little bit like how WCW were like during the Attitude Era.
Well, those are
Yeah.
some great statements indeed. Once again, I'm talking
Hmm.
to Rayson Choo of the Raygacy Show. You got to catch his inspirational show because he has an array of great guests each and every time
Yep.
out. You got to check. You got to
Thank
catch
you.
it today. That's available on Anchor.fm and also as well Apple Podcasts and so many other different
Yes.
podcast outlets. It's just so great to have you talking here about All Elite Wrestling. I agree with you.
Hmm.
I mean, this is early stages for them. I mean, they
Yes.
do have
Correct.
a lot of goodwill, a lot of good emotion behind them right now. There is a ton of things that they need to go ahead and do before they go ahead and consider themselves, either at anywhere near that kind of level. But they are taking those baby steps. They are going ahead and
Hmm.
trying to put a product out that people are trying to enjoy. The wrestling itself,
Yes.
it was very quality. The match layout was very solid indeed. The fact that they're going to start talking about how wins and losses matter within the company, I really truly enjoy that because the 50-50 booking we've seen for the past, I
Hmm.
don't know, just so many years at World Wrestling Entertainment just blows me away to no end, and not in a good way. I will say that. And
Hmm.
but I do think there's things that they need to do. First of all, you and I spoke beforehand about the commentating that needs to go
Yes.
ahead and be
Correct.
addressed. As far as to create that type of environment, they need to
Hmm.
go ahead and maybe get some new blood in there or something. But I know Jim Ross is the greatest announcer alive ever. That's great, and
Yep.
but unfortunately, I think that and people have said this, whispers and whatnot, but as much as I respect him as an announcer, maybe he is not the individual to call these matches anymore, and maybe be in a stance where he should be like as far as a studio program or something to set up each and every type of atmosphere. I think he would be awesome
Correct.
in that type of format these days. But also as well, the individuals, Alex Marvez and the other masked play-by-play guy, they got to go ahead and address those issues. I don't think those two came off very well, unfortunately, because I do
Yeah.
respect Alex.
Correct.
I do highly respect the work of Alex Marvez, especially when he was really doing a lot of great stuff with pro wrestling. Excuse me, with the Wrestling Observer. But I will say this: that there's also the presentation look that I did not think
Hmm.
was differentiating for themselves, because in many ways their backstage skits, they're driving up with the limo. That just reminds me so much of what we already see many times at nauseum on the WWE, that I think
Yeah.
that it just portrays themselves as a WWE light, which is not a good look for them long term. Right now, they still have
Hmm.
the goodwill of the fans, and they're going to sell out everything that they go ahead and announce, as far as whether it's Fighter Fest or whatever the other
Yep.
events that they have coming up, at least in the short term. But as long as they have a presentation that does not deviate very much from what we already see at WWE, that's going to be a
Hmm.
problem for them, especially in the fall when they start on TNT each and every week.
Yeah. I mean, like, getting to watch so many indie wrestlers on the show, it was amazing. Like, to introduce a few new peeps to us, or perhaps they are very popular indie, but those WWE fan that has never watched or seldom watched indie wrestling would not know who the heck are Best Friends or or even the Japanese wrestlers, except for Emi Sakura. She's very popular. Aja Kong, yes, but if you talk to me about uh, Ryo Mizunami, I have no clue. I have no clue until I went to search on her on Google, or even like to watch her YouTube videos. Then I know that, oh, she's from this stable in Japan. NJPW. She's from all these people are from different stables of Japan. We wouldn't know, right? That they are actually from all these DDT and all these places, but um, it's a bit. It could have been done better, where they would say that, oh, we are getting people from this stable or wherever to actually do a promo and let people know, other than the Cole Dustin promo, other than the Jericho Omega promo. They can, if they can, do some promo about all these players, it will be good to let people know that, hey, these guys are coming and things like that. And also, of course, they had some surprise packages back there, such as Bret Hart coming out to uh, introduce the title belt to everyone. But of course, the title belt presentation could be done slightly better, even though they had some storyline uh, where a few players come out to actually talk about it, to actually dispute about it, and Hangman Page have to come out to support Bret Hart for that. Yeah, I believe it it could have been done slightly better, other than just MJF coming out to destroy the party a little. And yeah, it overall, it was nice. It was good. And having people like in DDP coming out to bring Brandy Rhodes out, uh, it was nice, like, in my opinion. But the overall can be improved. So yeah, the overall can be improved in terms of, like, the promo for certain wrestlers can be done better. And of course, we know that by right, Adam Page is supposed to have a match with what's his name again?
He's going to have a match with Chris Jericho for the
No,
title.
no. Before this, before he
Oh,
was
with
supposed
Pac.
to.
Yeah, with Pac.
Peg. Yeah, correct. Yeah, correct. Yeah, he was supposed to have a match with him, but somehow or other, I was told that he wanted to keep hold of his title, and he wanted to win somehow or other, and he cannot lose his title as well. So he had no choice. They had to change the storyline and let him not have a match until a later date. So he's still in. He's still with the AEW, just that his storyline will come in a bit later on. And I believe the commentators can be improved in terms of uh, this not Jim Ross, but uh, the other two guys that was there. I believe they are
It is again Alex
they
Marvez and Excalibur were the
uh,
commentators.
yeah, Excalibur, correct. Alex Marvis and Excalibur, their passion was not there. They were a little bit confused. I would say confusing to the fans out there, to the audience, because they do not, somehow or other, they do not, some of the items that were on it, they do not know what to say, or they say it with some doubt as well, which made me think that they could have done it better. And they they could have gotten some other people from probably ROH, people from TNA to actually do the announcing as well, because they got one lady, what's the name again? Ellie. They got Ellie from TNA to actually do some uh, ringside announcement in terms of some when it comes to the female wrestlers when they were here to fight, and especially when we talk about female wrestlers, I was pretty surprised when they got this awesome Kong to come out to actually do a fight. And it's sad that they let Kong to have such a very short game time on the match itself. She didn't do much uh, I would say damage to the players. She could have done more damage rather than just a couple of moments and she got whacked by Nyla Rose as well, and yeah, the match was okay for me. And the thing is, I believe, right, for the match that could have been better, it would be the Casino Royale. It was a bit dull, in my opinion. In my opinion, it was a bit dull. Even though they had people like uh, Hangman Page, Jungle Boy, they had people like uh, Luchasaurus, which was good. I mean, like he was pretty good in the match itself. And then they had Tommy Dreamer, Billy Gunn, and all these players. But I still believe it could have improved by having much more high flying action or some kind of a better storyline where there are a few guys who had some feud in there and to fight it all out, like how Royal Rumble in WWE had a lot of feuds inside where probably Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens had a feud before and they had a great time on the match itself, even though they didn't really win it. But it was amazing to watch them fight it all out. Yeah, yeah, rather than this casino battle royale.
Well, it was interesting because it did take place in a city where a longtime home of a resident is Mike Tenay, who announced for many
Mm-hmm.
years on World Championship Wrestling and also TNA and Impact,
Yep.
and
Yes.
did a very outstanding job. I have met him
Mm-hmm.
in many years ago. He is an extremely
Nice.
he's an awesome gentleman to talk to. He was very
Yes.
ingratiating to me the time that I knew him, and I'll tell you what, I think he would have been a great option to at least get this thing started when it comes to Double or Nothing and all that. But
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, they did not go down that, or maybe he doesn't want to get back into the business at all because he's gone radio silent in the past years since his leaving TNA. So, I know he does a lot of stuff when it comes to sports betting and things of that nature. So maybe he just wants to stay with that. Well, I don't know. It's just something I think that they need to address at some point in time before TNT hits in the fall for them. But you know what? We've gone a lot as far as what we've criticized them for. But I will tell you, the future does look bright for AEW overall. I'm just a little bit apprehensive to get on board full time because I've seen this. I've seen this show before. I've seen this story before emanate over the course of almost 30 years as far as someone trying to go ahead and put some money in to compete with the World Wrestling Entertainment. We'll see how long. We'll see how long owner, as far as the owner of AEW, as far as Shahid Khan and his son Tony Khan will want to stay involved with this. They're doing some things differently. They're dealing with analytics as far as the overall how they go ahead with their business, which I think is extremely intelligent. They're going about things in a different way as far as an approach to a younger audience and millennials, and hopefully they're trying to, along with trying to get that audience of a younger crowd, they're also trying to see if they can still maintain some type of resonance with an older crowd such as myself that has had an affinity over the course of 30, 40 years with professional wrestling. I hope that they make it because the environment makes it much better for professional wrestling if there is another big time entity out there along with the WWE that helps their product, because their product has grown stale over the past few years. And I've said this before, professional wrestling does not succeed at a high level unless there is a star that can attract people that are not involved or interested in their normal daily life when it comes to professional wrestling. When you get that casual audience in there, when you have someone that transcends the sport like Hulk Hogan, like him or hate him, and also as well Steve Austin and The Rock. Those individuals transcended the sport in so many ways. John Cena was close, but he was not at the level Steve Austin was at the height of his career. And the same thing with The Rock. Those two individuals and Hulk Hogan, they brought in an audience that was outside of the hardcores. And yes,
Mm-hmm.
it's great that AEW is going to cater themselves to an audience such as that. But in order to be successful long term, and in order to grow at the rate that they need to grow exponentially,
Mm-hmm.
they need to go ahead and make sure they try everything that they can to ingratiate themselves to a larger, broader audience. And that's the big test. And that's the big question.
Yep.
I
Correct.
hope so. I mean, the history has shown us that it hasn't really happened. And when it
Correct.
did happen, it was with WCW, and unfortunately, due to their own poor decision making, met their own demise, and that's another
Yes.
story in and of itself. But my
Correct.
hope is AEW will make the right decisions to go ahead, production wise, talent wise,
Mm-hmm.
and also wrestling wise, that they'll be able to go ahead and put a product out there that can eventually compete on a card by card, week by week basis with the WWE. One last
Yeah.
thing I want to talk to you about is when you get in situations like these where you have a startup company or you have a company that has an influx of money and tries to go ahead and present themselves as something bigger and something that could possibly compete with the WWE. There is a tendency for any WWE wrestler that leaves, whether they're fired or whether they quit, for them to go ahead and migrate over to whatever new entity or hot entity that is. We have
Yes.
seen it in recent times with the
Mm-hmm.
entrances, Chris Jericho, John Moxley, Pac.
Yep.
Those individuals have migrated from the WWE by their own choosing, mind you. They weren't
Yes.
terminated.
Correct.
That was their own choice to go with AEW, so it's a little different there. But
Yeah.
eventually, there's going to come to the time where you want to go ahead and fill that roster out with quality people, but in doing so, there becomes there's a fear that there's a perception that you're just going to go ahead and get WWE hand-me-downs. So I ask you, as a company, do you go ahead and try to reach out with those ex WWE stars as they leave World Wrestling Entertainment, or do you stay away from that and try to build something on your own that could be something really special, or maybe not? It could go easily the other way around.
Well, if it's me, right, I would suggest this. So if let's say I see any of the WWE talent uh, be, being axed out, or they terminate their contract with their own will, right? I would actually look at them together with my team to see whether do they fit in the storylines, do they fit in the company's value, and I would say, do they fit in with the culture of this whole wrestling promotion? Why would I say that? Is because if let's say, okay, I am able to get people like AJ Styles, people like Roman Reigns onto AEW, I wouldn't mind. But I need to know whether are they fitting or not. Because if they do not fit in the company, they do not fit in I would say, the whole board of storylines and the wrestler's profile, I I will definitely I would definitely look at these talents and try to pull them in, because as long as I could see some dream matches between my players and theirs, I would definitely get them on board. Like recently, after whole of AEW or during AEW Double or Nothing, WWE wrestlers, a couple of them were tweeting about it. They were there were people like the New Day. There were people like Sasha Banks that were tweeting about it. And if I were if I were in their shoes in AEW, I would be thinking about whether do Sasha Banks fit in. Who's good to challenge Sasha Banks then? Who is good to challenge these people that have tweeted? And all these people that have tweeted, do they have a huge fan base? If they have a huge fan base, how can I leverage on their fan base so that I can draw more attention to AEW as compared to WWE? And how can I leverage on WWE's recent, I would say, foley or storyline to make sure that I can use it on my benefit. Because Sami Zayn recently said AEW on Raw, right? And it's their number one flagship show in the whole entire pro wrestling. In the whole entire pro wrestling, Raw was the biggest and baddest ass kicker in the whole sports entertainment. In terms of wrestling wise, they are the big dogs, right? And they said something about their number two company or the rising star company on their show. There must be a storyline behind there, or it could be Sami Zayn slipped his mouth. So it depends, right, on how we see it. So if it's me, I wouldn't want to do the same thing as what WCW did, which was to actually just acquire talent and then think about who to do all those storylines with, and that's it. No, I would rather plan it out first before I get these people in, because even if they have 10 million fan base, right, somehow or other it might it might affect the whole roster itself. Even though we get someone not that big, or maybe people like Emma, right? People like uh, Lacey Evans, who's just rising, and we just get them, approach them in, poach them in, right? Or maybe like how WCW did, they got the women's champion over on board in from WWF to WCW, yeah, and they throw the title onto the rubbish bin. Yeah, it's eye catching, but slowly as it goes, you need to plan out what kind of storyline can you give it to Medusa. What kind of storyline can you use for her so that it can be very beneficial for this company. Because as the story goes, it will definitely dull. It will definitely die down and become very dull after that. If you do not know how to plan, if you do not know how to actually get the message across to the audience, and of course, looking at WWE now, their storylines are a bit shaky and they are confused with what to do, because they have this usually they have WWE shakeup right after post WrestleMania, and somehow or rather after the shakeup they had this wild card rule, which was a bit like they are shouting for SOS. They're like, hey, we are in deep shit now. Our ratings are dropping, even though it's a $1 billion company, but it doesn't mean that it is a company that's progressing due to the storylines, or perhaps the person that was writing the script, they have no idea what to write anymore, or they do not have anything to say much. So they had this 24/7 kind of a belt, which was something like the hardcore championship belt, which was a little bit ridiculous in terms of I would say, the design of it, and of course how they tried to use R-Truth to gain some uh, viewership from there. But I don't think it works that much this time round. So if let's say WWE storylines still suck, or still decreasing, the quality is still decreasing, then of course AEW will leverage on it and beat them with the better storylines, in my opinion. That is what I truly believe in. So if I were to be AEW, I will not just go and intentionally sign people. I'll intentionally go and shake things up over there. So the fans will get amazed. The back end staff, and the front end staff will be like, whoa, these guys are really doing some things different and amazing. And they are trying to change the game of how pro wrestling has become ever since WWE has been the giant among all the other promotions, right? So this time around, AEW, independent scene, and all these other boys down there, the underdogs, are rising because of them knowing the flaws of WWE, the flaws of WWE, so they know how to leverage on there. Like people like Triple H knowing certain talents are good but not great enough in his own eyes, so he let them go. Like people like Evan Bourne, people like Cody Rhodes, all these amazing people could have been world champions or could have been intercontinental champions for certain point of time, but they didn't. And after they have gotten a few championship, and then after that, probably WWE got bored with creating some storylines for them, and they just let them go, or they just call it quits between both of them, right? So I truly believe, if let's say we are competing with a big dog, we need to know what makes them successful and we model them. And then we need to make sure that our culture, our value is not a copy and paste from WWE, but it is something that is much relevant to the audience. And we need to actually do some survey as well to actually check with the fans, be it WWE, TNA, NJPW, or wherever these wrestling fans are. Ask them, what kind of pro wrestling do you want to watch? What kind of matches do you want to see this time around? Who do you want to see challenging certain people? And like how WWE had this time where they actually asked the WWE universe, who do you want to watch to challenge? Yeah, that is a good idea. But even greater idea is to actually check out the reviews. What reviews are out there, be it you are the owner or you are the back end staff. Go and check it out. See what are the comments, what are the people's opinion about certain matches, and see where they can actually improve. Of course, if there are hater mails and all sorts of nonsense, don't look at it. But if it's something that can improve your company's attraction, it can improve your company's value to the audience, by all means, go and watch and listen and go and make a difference to the audience that's watching, because ultimately it's all about the fans. It's not so much about them.
That's right. Again, this is Rayson Choo. You got to follow his awesome show, The Raygacy Show, available now on Anchor.fm and also as well on Apple Podcasts and so many other podcast outlets. I'm telling you what, Rayson, I'll tell you what, it's just a great time to talk to you when it comes to AEW. I agree with you on many of the things that you said. And again, I know a lot of what we said today was about, little nitpicky things that we talk about fixing, whatnot. This is something that they need to address sooner rather than later, because the fact is they have the goodwill of the fans now. They need to do something specific in regards to that. And if to try and keep that fan base happy, satisfied with the product, willing to go ahead and follow the storylines, like you said, they need to be compelling. They need to be different and outside of the box from what the WWE is showing today. And hopefully that will be the case, especially when they start on TNT in the fall and they're running each and every week, and they want to go ahead and present something that hopefully fans will go ahead and get behind, because that's what I would like to see. I would like to see them prove everyone, all the naysayers, the doubters, including myself, because again, I'm by very nature of watching pro wrestling over the course of close to 40 plus years now. And I've seen it all. I've seen it all when it comes to professional wrestling. And of course, I'm going to be on that naysayer side. So I want to see them address those things and make those changes for the future to try and go ahead and present something and showcase something different that sets themselves apart and will make themselves a viable contender to the WWE and make them a viable competitor to the WWE as well. So I'm hoping.
And one more thing is, just recently I actually saw this video regarding Vince Russo's tweet about AEW collaborating with WWE, and I was thinking, hey, maybe it could be true. Why I say that is because somehow or other, even though it seems like they want to challenge one another, but somehow or other, it gives me the vibe of how ECW invaded WWF back then in the 90s, where they have the King went into WWF, went to ECW to invade them and do a couple of shows for a few times, and then RVD came into AEW, and Paul Heyman was commentating in WWF back then. So I believe if, let's say, it is true like what Vince Russo has said, then maybe this collaboration would be a very interesting and huge one for pro wrestling. But if it's not, then we could see this competition very, very much like back in the early 2000s, where WCW, ECW, the Alliance versus WWF. And of course, if, let's say, one day there's one of this invasion about to happen, okay, if, let's say, it happens in AEW, it means that, okay, cool, WWE lost its game and AEW has won it. But if it's happening in WWE, then we know that, okay, AEW, I understand that you have been promoting and selling and saying so much about it, but it could be like small boy having big talk at that point of time, and they lost it. So it depends. So I'm really fascinated by the upcoming months in terms of how AEW versus WWE goes. Yeah, if it's all good for all elite wrestling, then by all means, right, it will be awesome. And then that means we have another great promotion to watch other than TNA, Lucha Underground, and etc.
I agree with you on that.
Yep.
Before you head on out, my friend, I got to ask
Yes.
you, why do people need to listen to your awesome show, The Raygacy Show, now available on Anchor.fm, Apple Podcasts, and so many other different podcast outlets?
Okay, the reason why I believe it is something that you guys should listen is because I have amazing guests such as Grant Cardone, Gary Vee, and etc. to be actually sharing their entrepreneurial journey with you, and also golden nuggets on how to thrive in the entrepreneurial world. And of course, there are also certain tips and tidbits from many other big entrepreneurs based in Singapore and other parts of the world, so that when you are thinking about going global expansion, especially when you are from US, from the States, from Canada, from Europe, and etc., you want to have businesses in Singapore or around Southeast Asia and Asia, then you can actually learn some stuff from this podcast as well, so that you are I would say preempt and prepared to actually build your business, build your empire in Singapore. Yeah, and I believe it can add a lot of positivity, inspiration, and motivation for you guys. Aside from the Tim Ferriss show and all the other show, this is one of the shows that we actually go raw and, I would say, authentically with the audience and the guests, because there's no cut, no NGs, which means to say that we cut and we re-record it. No, it's all live, because I use Facebook Live to record it, and then after that we turn it into an audio. And of course, stay tuned for more via YouTube, because it will be up on YouTube as well, and it's totally free, so everyone can get access to it.
That's, again, The Raygacy Show, available now on Anchor, also as well available on Apple Podcasts, so many other different podcast outlets. Check out his show on Facebook Live as well, and upcoming on YouTube. Well, Rayson, I'll tell you what, it was just awesome to talk to you about AEW, the future of All Elite Wrestling. And again, to everyone out there, I am very hopeful that AEW will turn into that big entity that so many of us that follow the industry for so many years have been hoping for. There's been more moments in time where there's that brief glimmer of hope that the WWE will have a solid contender, which hasn't been around since the late 90s, because we also what happened with we all saw what happened with World Championship Wrestling and the downfall of their company and whatnot. But there's been just a few glimmers of hope. Unfortunately, none of them have paid off. But now that AEW is out, now that there's a good, strong fan base by it, now that there's something that they can go ahead and build upon for the future, let's hope that All Elite Wrestling can go ahead and achieve that great status, which so many people like myself and you as well are hoping for indeed.
Yeah.
Totally.
Totally.
All right, my friend. It's just great having you again on the show. This has just been such an awesome pleasure to have you talking about All Elite Wrestling, talking pro wrestling. I got to get you back on talking more great pop culture subjects with me, whether or not you want to talking to people, giving advice on how to deal with it, or just talking about how fun it is to talk about pop culture. It's just always great to have you part of the pop culture cosmos.
Well,